You know, if you have a dog, I am almost certain you've done this. You've looked him right in the eyes and had a complete, full-blown conversation. Complex sentences, little inside jokes, maybe even a bit of sarcasm. We talk to them like they're just our furry little roommates. But have you ever actually stopped to wonder what's really getting through to them?
Okay, so let's dive into this with a perfect example from a viral video. In it, someone is telling their dog, who is, completely in the way, "Well, aren't you a charmer? Now be a gentleman and move over." It's so funny, it's totally relatable, and honestly, it's the perfect case study for us to unpack today.
And this really brings us to the big question, right? Is this a genuine conversation? A real two-way street? Does that dog actually understand the idea of a charmer or a gentleman? Or are we looking at two totally different communication systems just happening at the same time? Let's break it all down.
So, first up, let's look at the human side of this whole thing. Why do we talk to them like this in the first place? Well, the answer really has everything to do with how our brains work. Think about it. When we call a dog a charmer, we're not really describing a dog personality trait. What we're doing is interpreting their behavior. Maybe it's a cute head tilt or that stubborn refusal to move. And we're running it through a human filter. The dog isn't trying to be charming. We're just seeing it that way. Now, what's really fascinating here is that this has a name: anthropomorphism. It's this incredibly natural human impulse to project our own feelings, our own intentions, onto things that aren't human. We do it because, well, it helps us make sense of the world around us, and, most importantly, it helps us form social bonds. So here's the bottom line on this part. This behavior is incredibly important for us. Talking to our dogs like they're people, it solidifies their place in our lives as our companions, as part of the family. It makes our emotional connection that much stronger. But, and this is a big but, when it comes to the actual words, it's pretty much a one-way street. Okay, so now let's flip the script. Let's look at the other side of this conversation. If the dog isn't processing the grammar of be a gentleman, what is it hearing? What information is actually making it through all that?
This slide just lays it out perfectly. On the left, you've got what we say, a pretty complex sentence like, "Stop that, I'm not moving." But then look over on the right. The dog hears something totally different, a sharp tone of voice, tense body language. All of that gets translated into a much, much simpler message. Stop what you're doing.
See, dogs are working with a completely different set of tools. They are absolute masters at reading our tone of voice. That happy, high-pitched good boy versus the low, firm no. They watch our body language like a hawk, and they get context. Picking up the leash means one thing, standing by the food bowl means something else entirely. This isn't just them being clever, it's an evolutionary superpower sharpened over thousands of years of living right alongside us. And then finally, they learn to connect specific sounds or words with those results. And this is the key to the whole thing. Dogs are amazing at associative learning. They don't need to understand the sentence, "Do you want to go for a walk?" They've just learned through tons of repetition that the specific sound walk, said in an excited voice while you're heading for the door, means something awesome is about to happen. They just associate the sound with the outcome.
All right, so let's put all the pieces together and finally answer that question we started with. When you're having that long chat with your dog, are they actually understanding your language?
This chart really puts it all into perspective. I mean, look at how high those bars are for tone of voice and body language. That is where a dog is getting almost all of its information. Now look at the bar for specific words. It's just a much, much smaller piece of the pie. They're basically listening to the music, not the lyrics.
So here's the big takeaway. Do they understand English? Well, no, not like a person does. They aren't breaking down sentence structure or looking up words in a mental dictionary. But do they understand us? Absolutely, 100% yes. They are brilliant at figuring out what we mean by reading all those emotional and physical clues we're constantly throwing out.
And this brings us to our last and maybe our most important point. If we kind of know deep down that they don't get all the specific words, why do we do it? Why do we pour our hearts out to them? Why does it feel so real?
Because really, it's not for them. It's for us. The act of talking to our pets, of putting our thoughts and feelings into words for them, it fulfills this deep, profound human need for connection. It's what turns them from just an animal living in our house into a real member of the family, a confidant, a listener who never judges.
When you get right down to it, the whole thing is summed up perfectly by this idea.
It's not about the dog's ability to understand language. It's about the emotional expression it gives us. We're not looking for a debate partner here. We're just looking for a bond. And talking is how we as humans build those bonds.
So the next time you catch yourself telling your dog all about your terrible day at work, don't feel silly. You're taking part in one of the oldest and honestly one of the most beautiful forms of communication between species. Which kind of leaves us with one final thought. If the connection is real and the love is understood, does the language we use to get there even matter?